Says its Revolutionary Guard Corps have attacked at least 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, escalating the standoff. So let's take a live look here at the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. It's largely at a standstill, caught in between Iranian and American blockades. And as you probably know by now, it's a critical route for global oil shipping and for Iran's own economy. Overnight, President Trump saying Iran is collapsing financially and is starved for cash because it's losing $500 million a day. The blockade firmly in place, even as the president extends the ceasefire. Joining me now, I have retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Bernie Flowers and former U.S. Army Intelligence Officer Michael Pregent, a Middle East analyst, along with News Nation's Robert Sherman and Trevor Shirley. Good morning to everybody here on the panel. Thank you for your time. Colonel, just with what's happening in the Strait, you've got Iran refusing, to give up its control, forcing the U.S. naval blockade to stay in place. Who has the most leverage right now in these dueling blockades?
Well, we have the most leverage, Marky. Thanks for asking that. Bottom line is that nothing moves because we have control of the straits. Yeah, they've got their little dune buggy boats out there causing problems or anything. But remember, you just said they're losing $500 million a day, and they can't sustain that indefinitely. In the meantime, we've got our naval forces out there, and nothing moves unless we approve it. So we're in a better position than they are.
Yeah. Michael, do you agree with that?
I do. They haven't been able to tax these ships like they wanted to at $2 million a pop to move through the strait. And part of the ceasefire negotiation, when the Pakistanis mentioned it, they said, listen, as a good faith gesture, the Iranians are going to open the Strait of Hormuz. They did not do that. They violated the ceasefire this whole time. And the only reason it's still in place is because the president has chosen to absorb these violations. But now we're seeing escalation. We don't have anyone in real control inside of Iran. There are rumors that the negotiating team may be under house arrest. That hasn't been confirmed. But the supreme leader, we don't know his status, but we do know that the IRGC General Vavidi is making the decisions. And these decisions, I think, are hurting Iran. We don't need a deal. They need a deal. We want to make sure we keep the pressure on.
Yeah, and Colonel, just amidst all these different reports that the Iranian government is seriously fractured, I mean, you even have President Trump citing that government as, and their fracture within it as part of the reason for this ceasefire extension. How does the U.S. get these talks to resume when there's pressure inside the Iranian Guard's upper ranks to keep the war going?
We just need to stay the course. The bottom line is the power's on our side. And remember, we're dealing with the B team, not the A team, because the truth is we killed the A team. So they have to keep that in mind. We are tracking them. So I think that everything will work out in time. Give it a couple of weeks and everything will work out. In the meantime, maintain the pressure where we are and keep on with the international, pressure that we're doing in Pakistan.
Yeah. Trevor, you're live at the White House. The Colonel just brought up a good point that we have killed the A-team. And when President Trump, cited that Iranian's government being seriously fractured was the reason for the extension, my first thought was, why do we care about that? Hasn't that been one of the big objectives and goals for the last 7 or 8 weeks?
Yeah, certainly it's true, though. I think it's tough to say that we eliminated the U.S., rather eliminated the so-called A-team. You've got the son of the old Ayatollah now allegedly running the show over in Iran. And I don't know that there's a fundamental difference between what was and what currently is. What we have seen is that the Iranian regime right now has shown a pretty high level of resiliency in terms of being able to set the course for where things are going right now. Obviously, the U.S. has military superiority in that theater. But at this point, the White House is still really waiting on the Iranians to decide whether or not they're going to come back to the negotiating table. President Trump extended that ceasefire, as he says, at the request of the Pakistanis. But I think it does show that Iran does continue to hold some leverage as all of this plays out.
Robert, you're live in Tel Aviv. I mean, Israel's not a formal party to these, Pakistan talks, but they're clearly and obviously a party to the war. I mean, we launched Operation Epic Fury along with Israel. How are Israelis taking this news of an extended, indefinite ceasefire right now?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, Marky, that this dominates just about every passing conversation here. Everyone is asking one another, what do you think is going to happen? How much longer do you think this goes? Do you start to see a flare up again? Do you start to see sirens going off here again or not? Bottom line is that everyone is in this cloud of uncertainty, just like the rest of us on the ground here in the Middle East. But what I would say is that people here are hoping, no matter how it comes, there's a resolution here in the region that diminishes Iran's ability to threaten in the long term around the region, whether that is funding other non-state actors around the Middle East, whether that is the direct threat that they would pose. And you've also heard that from a lot of the Gulf states as well. I mean, especially the UAE has been so outspoken here, talking about how, it's one thing to open the Strait of Hormuz, but it's another thing in order to ensure that Iran can't close it again just the next time that there's geopolitical tension here in the Middle East. That's the kind of resolution that people are looking for. Finality, not a short-term solution.
Colonel, how long should we let this extended ceasefire go on before we finally say, okay, we need to revert to kinetic fighting again? What's your take on that?
I am hoping that we can have this thing, and it's hard to put a timetable on this thing. Just remember that we have no great rush. We've got control and we've got military superiority. Let's just let this thing roll until they give in. Remember, $500 million a day is a lot of money that they're not able to use in their economy and not able to carry out their mischief. And this big deal is the nuclear agreement that we have to have, and we're not going to get this done until they give in.
Yeah. Michael, let me just end with you. Do you think we're still fighting this war 6 months from now, a year from now? And what's your realistic prediction on how this all comes to an end?
Well, if we don't do this right and the regime survives and they're able to project force again, then we'll be fighting this for the next 2 decades. This has to be done right now. President has political capital. We have all of our cards in play, and we have our forces there. We have to do it now. Otherwise, we're going to continue to fight this. The regime is going to continue to support proxies, advance their ballistic missile capabilities, try to rebuild their nuclear program. If that happens, then Operation Epic Fury will have failed because it didn't end that. That's what needs to happen.
Michael Pregent, Lieutenant Colonel Bernie Flowers, Robert Sherman, Trevor Shirley. I got to end it there, but thank you all so very much, as always. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Marky.
Well,